Hello, my good people, and welcome back to Unit 4 on credit and debt. We are now on Unit 4, Lesson 4, Lesson 4 on debt, all by itself. We're moving along from the credit section, and we're moving into debt and some evaluations of debt and fraud after this. All right, so let's keep it moving. What is debt? Let's get into it. It is something that is owed, usually money. All right, so you might owe somebody a favor. That counts as a debt. You might owe somebody a ride somewhere because they gave you a ride to cook out when you needed one after practice or something. So debt is typically money that is owed, and for our intents and purposes in this particular unit, we'll say that that is money. All right, so it can be used to take on higher costs that could not be paid at once with cash or other forms of payment. All right, so you went into debt in order to purchase this thing because you can have the money over time, you just don't have it up front. All right, you can have good or bad debt. There is a such thing as having good debt, I promise. All right, so what is good debt? All right, if you take on debt to potentially increase your net worth, all right, net worth meaning the total value of your assets minus debts. All right, so let's say, for example, Jeff Bezos, the guy who runs Amazon or owns Amazon, his net worth is like 168 billion. Let's Google it right now. Jeff Bezos net, good Lord 11, 185 billion. Meanwhile, in public education town, dang. All right, so anywho, his net worth is $185 billion. He's probably worth a little more than that, but if you take away all the debt that he owes to people, or if you take away like any liabilities, anything that detracts from his profit, like insurance or cars or something like that, that kind of like knocks his net worth down just a little bit. So it's the total value of your assets minus your debts, or you could say liabilities. So some examples of good debt are a home loan, all right, or student loans and education, or a small business loan and entrepreneurship. All right. If you need to pause and go back, I'm about to just like talk about them via their picture because I'd rather look at pictures than words. All right, so for a house, this is going to add to your profit eventually because a house, typically speaking, increases in value over time. All right, so if you buy a house for $100,000 and you live in it for 20 years and eventually it's worth $200,000, you just made 100 grand. You've just doubled the amount of money that your house is worth just by sitting on it and just by paying it off every month, okay? The difference between like renting and a mortgage is that when you rent, you are paying to use it. When it's a mortgage, you are paying to own it, whatever it is, okay? Your home or your property. So for a house, that can potentially add to your net worth. Jeff Bezos has like 7 houses, okay? All right. Education can also add to it. I'm going to pause for a second, grab my computer charger cord. All right, we're back. All right, so for graduation, are you going to community college or getting a master's degree or something like that, that can also potentially increase your net worth because it can open up some more opportunities for your career or for jobs that will get you some more cash than you have now. Because remember we talked about in a previous unit upward mobility. I hope you remember what that means because there's a question coming up. If you said that it's the ability to increase your responsibility and also your money at work, you'd be right. Give yourself a high five. All right, you being able to have an education opens up more opportunities. Now, you don't have to use them, but you need to give yourself some opportunities if you can. All right, the last one is entrepreneurship or having a small business loan. If you decide that you want to open up a business and you take out a loan, let's say you take out a loan for $100,000 to open a barbershop, okay? You want it to be the coolest barbershop in the whole country, all right? And you take out your loan, you buy your little corner lot or whatever, like downtown or something like that. You get your barber chairs, you get your barber saw, you get your clippers, you get, I don't know, whatever else you need to get people fades and stuff, all right? So you end up doing that. That is going to increase your net worth because eventually you're going to make money at this business. You're going to be able to pay that whole loan back and your net worth is going to increase. Jeff Bezos, big old 185 billion dollar Jeff Bezos used to be worth not much. Like that man used to be worth like 50 grand. Okay? Tops. But he had a good idea and he invested in his own small business, and eventually it turned into the giant corporation it is today. All right, so what is bad debt? Let's go to the flip side of that. This is anything that's going to decrease or what we call depreciate in value over time. All right, something that increases in value over time is something that appreciates. Right, anything that decreases is a depreciating asset, well, a liability. All right, so an example of this would be a car loan, credit card debt, or a personal loan. Credit card debt is kind of tricky because it will help you have good credit in order for you to take out loans on things. However, over time, any interest that you pay on your credit card debt, you might as well just take that piece of money and light it on fire because you can't get it back. Okay, so personal loans are also pretty much bad debt. If you are in debt on, like, let's say you got 3 credit cards, right? And you are like drowning in debt on all 3 of those, you could take out a personal loan, pay off all those credit cards, and then just pay off the one loan every month. But again, your interest is going to come back to bite you. Okay, a car loan is also bad debt because you eventually, by the time you get a new car and you want to trade in your old one and get some money for it, it's going to be worth a fraction of what it was when you drove it off the lot to begin with. Okay, cars depreciate in value over time unless they're a collectible. Okay, and you probably aren't going to be able to afford a collectible off the lot. If you are, kudos. Okay, live your best life. So here's the thing. For example, my first car that I bought myself, my very first car, I bought and then promptly sold it back to the person who sold it to me for a host of reasons. But my second car, I bought myself off the lot. I bought a Scion TC off the lot in 2012. And then I sold it in 2020. So I had my car for 8 years. It was a good little car. It did exactly what I needed it to do to take me from point A to point B. And so my car was worth I paid $21,000 for it, brand new. And by the time I turned it in to the new car lot to get myself my current vehicle, it was only worth $5,000. Y'all, I paid 21 grand for that car, and it was worth $5,000. Over the course of 8 years, I lost $15,000 in car payments. Okay, so cars are bad debt. Pay them off as soon as you can. Don't buy a new car every year. It is not worth it unless you are married to somebody or can figure out a way to get a car like at cost. Unless you are like married to somebody who's a car lot salesman worker, don't do that. All right, so just talked about this. Also with a personal loan, let's say you take out a loan to get married, all right, and you want to throw a big old party and have a great old time, you can do that, but you're going to be paying for it for a while, right? So you just need to think about that before you're out here putting yourself in further debt. All right, so how can you manage debt? You can pay it down. There's 2 methods, the snowball method and the high rate method, okay? So I would like for you to go ahead and, let me make you a new document so y'all can see this. Unit 4, new document. Thanks for coming along on this journey into the Google Drive with me. All right, so write what I'm writing, okay? Put this into the margin on the left-hand side where you got the space for questions. All right, so the 2 ways to pay off debt, you can either do the high rate method. Ooh, I like Arial font. Let's change that. Times New Roman. All right, so the high rate method, you pay off, Lord help, pay off card with highest APR first. All right, on the other hand, the snowball method, you pay off smallest debts first, and then you work up to the biggest ones. All right, so you kind of snowball. It's like an avalanche that goes down a hill, or a snowball that goes down the hill and like grows as it goes. So you pay off, let's say you have debt that's like 1,000, and then 2,000, and then 3,000. You pay them in order smallest to biggest, okay? So that it's easier for you to systematically work off your debt. All right, and we're back. All right, so debt consolidation is another thing. You can, like we said earlier, you can take out a personal loan to cover all the debt at one time and then just have one monthly payment. All right, you can refinance a loan, so you can redo the loan for a lower percentage. All right, you can transfer, so you can move all of your debt to a card with the lowest APR. Let's say you have 3 credit cards, and you got one that has 3% APR, 5%, and 10%. You're going to take those the two accounts that have the two highest APRs, take your whole set of debt and move it to just one card. Instead of you taking out a loan like you would for debt consolidation, you just decided to put it to one card. And you can do that if you want. Or you can negotiate your APR down. You do not have to take the APR that they give you. You can get another one if you want, okay? Let me scoot back for just a second. All right, so let's say that you've been paying off debt to this particular credit card company for 3 years now. You've never had a late payment. You've always paid more than the minimum, and you've paid it off a total of 2 or 3 times. All right, and if you have an 8% APR and you're like, I am tired of paying 8% of this junk, I want it down to like 5. Call them up, fuss at somebody, turn into a Karen real quick. All right, there's nobody stopping you from getting a lower interest rate. Please self-advocate and make sure you pay the least amount of money as humanly possible in interest. And this has been Debt.